going to be starting at verse 3, but I want to get to verse 1 because that makes up the context and the content of what we're going to be studying today. James chapter 3 says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body." Look at verse 3. "If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole body as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts great things. How great a forest fire is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by him. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and our Father, and with it we curse people who are, watch this, made in the likeness of God.
My Lord.
From the same mouth come blessing and cursing.
All right, sir.
My brothers, these things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. You may be seated as president. Watch your mouth. Tell your neighbor, watch your mouth. We talked to teachers last week about how important it is as teachers to watch your mouth. So we talked to leadership, we talked to clergy. But now I want to mention and talk to the laity. I want to talk to other Christians.
All right, sir.
I want to talk to those that were shouting yesterday, last Sunday, when I was getting on the teacher.
All right.
But I want you to continue to shout. Because now we're going to bowl down your alley and your road. Because the truth of the matter is, most of us, including me, need to watch our mouth. And James spends a lot of time, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the tongue. Matter of fact, he says, if you want to check out a person's religion that claims to be religious, don't check his tithing, check his tongue. If you want to check out a person that says that he's religious, don't even check his testimony. Check his tongue. Because the tongue determines if you're really real about your religion. And he said, if you can't keep your tongue in check, if you can't bridle your tongue, James says your religion is worthless. It's empty. Can I talk to some people that can admit to me today that you need to watch your tongue? Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's more than this text that meets the eye. Because we're going to unpack this, and I'm going to give you some reasons why you need to watch your mouth. Now, I'm talking to some husbands. They need to watch your mouth. Y'all sure got that.
All right, sir.
I'm talking to some wives that need to simply watch your mouth. need to shut up and be quiet. And before it comes out of your mouth, you need to think about the consequences.
Yes, sir.
If you let it go past your lips, past your teeth, past your tongue, and into the atmosphere. Y'all know about speaking in the atmosphere. Can I say something to you? There are some things you don't need to speak in the atmosphere. Some of you need to just watch your mouth. Well, watch it. James helps us with a child. Because James says in his text, when he talks to these people, he says, if we put bits, verse 3, in horses' mouth. Y'all see that? In other words, the tongue, being so small, can control a lot of things. Even though it's small, it can control big things. He said, first of all, he said, if you look at a horse, anybody ever go horseback riding? A horse, in order for you to control the horse, it has to have a small bit in its mouth connected to a bridle and connected to the reins of somebody. So the reality is that if you don't have the bit in the horse's mouth, that horse lacks discipline. And can I talk to somebody today? I can tell how disciplined you are, not by your shouting. I can tell how disciplined you are, not by your simple Bible reading. I can tell how disciplined you are if you can watch your mouth. See, because if you're not careful, your mouth can lead to an undisciplined life. He said, if we put bits in horses' mouths so that they obey us. Can you imagine if he didn't have that bit in a horse's mouth, how wild it can be? I told you an illustration a couple Sundays ago about how Mr. Miles Jackson, when he was a little kid, Brother Jackson and Sister Jackson's grandson, I took him horseback riding. And he could control this entire horse simply because of what was in his mouth. And I told Mister, I said, Mister, here's what you do. I know this thing weighs a lot more than you, and I know, Mister, that this is bigger than you, and I know that it can run off and get out of control, but I can tell you, Mister, you can control the horse because it has in its mouth a bit. And Mister, you have control over it, you have reins over it, and you can tell it to go right or you can tell it to go left, and you can discipline the horse by the little bit that's in his mouth.
All right, sir.
And can I talk to somebody today?
Come on.
I can tell about your lack of discipline in your life is when you can't control your tongue. Yeah, folks, even this week, can admit it was my tongue that messed up my relationship today. With
Pastor.
it's my tongue that got us sleeping in different beds. Yeah, it's the tongue. Well, the job had to tell you we don't need you no more. Because lack of discipline. He said we put bits in horses' mouths to control, and it can control an animal. You think it can control you? Yes, undisciplined. Wait a minute. He said not only do we see bits in horses' mouth, he comes from equestrian society, how you can do all kinds of things with horses as long as you control the tongue. You can control the head of the horse. He said, but not only, James said, you need to look at that with regard to discipline, you also need to look at the shift when it comes to direction. Y'all with me? Look at this. He said, not only do you need to look at these ships, these horses, but also it says, if you put at the ship, they are also so large and driven by strong winds, but watch this, they are guided. Y'all see the text? I ain't making this up, but right here. They're guided by a small rudder that controls, that guides, that directs the entire ship. He said, well, the bit has to do with the discipline, The rudder has to do with your direction. Now, look what he says. He said, let me tell you how the power of the tongue is like the rudder of a ship, that I don't care how big the ship is controlled and directed by the rudder. A few years ago, I took my first Caribbean cruise. I did it in 2018 because I got my PhD and my family decided that they're going to take me on. I've never been on a cruise before. And I went to the Royal Caribbean. We had a 7-day cruise. We went to Jamaica, we went to Cozumel, we went to Grand Cayman. I really enjoyed that, and I didn't do no gambling like most of y'all do. But I had a good time on the Royal Caribbean ship. About a month ago, they had a little video that talked about shipbuilding. And I was amazed to find out that one of the Royal Caribbean ships, it can take over 7,000 passengers. Along with 7,000 passengers, it can also have almost 2,500 crew members. That's almost 10,000 people on the boat that weighs so many tons, 230,000 gross tons. Oh, that's not even having the food and that's how heavy the ship is. But what I looked at when they were talking about these shipbuilding, they showed me how small the rudders were. And I'm saying these small rudders can handle 230,000 gross tons. These small rudders can handle almost 10,000 passengers on the ship. And the rudders were able to guide us to Grand Cayman Island. The rudders were able to guide us to Jamaica. The rudders were able to guide us to Cozumel. The rudders were able to guide us back home. In other words, it's the rudders that gave direction. Come here, let me talk to somebody today. Even though you're a person that's a small tongue, if you're not careful, can determine and impact your direction. You have a dream to do this, you have a dream to have this kind of job, you have a dream to have this kind of relationship, and can I suggest something to you? If you're not careful, your tongue, even though it's small, can impact not only your discipline, it can also impact your direction. And if it impacts your direction, watch this, it can also impact your destination. Watch this. Some folk in prison now. Tongue. Some folk divorced now. Tongue. Some folk don't have the job that they want. Tongue. Some folk have dealing with mental issues because of something that was said to them a long time ago. James said, listen, you got to understand the distinct position and the place of the tongue. He said it can determine your discipline, it also can determine your direction. But if you're not careful, if you don't get it in check, if you don't get it disciplined, if you don't get it going in the right direction, it's going to end up in destruction. Y'all think I'm making this up, right? Look what it says, and he says, verse 5, so also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. It's arrogant, it's proud, it's boastful, it's a braggart. It brags about what it can do. James inserts this here, Brother Marco, to let us know that the tongue, even though it's a small member, if you're not careful, the tongue is the instrument in your body that can do things that are antithetical to God. Do you see God boasting? But look how we brag. Look at how we boast in our regular, everyday language. We boast about our cars, our cash, our clothes, our commodities, our cottages in the country, and we brag about that stuff. We boast. Here's the problem is the tongue, it brags about many things, and you got to understand that it is a fire. Now watch this. It only takes a spark. The idea is that all it takes is a small spark. And that small spark can start a wildfire. A small spark can make an impact and burn up everything in your life. That's why in 1944, the U.S. Forest Service came up with an advertising campaign. And they brought in this bear called Smokey the Bear. And Smokey the Bear said, you can prevent, y'all got it, you can prevent forest fires. And Smokey the Bear talks about what you need to do to prevent forest fires. And most forest fires start, 95% of forest fires start by people. Now, this may not be for California, but it can be for your life. And can I talk to somebody today? In your life, you can prevent forest fires if you get control of your tongue. Can I just go ahead and watch this? He said, you need to not only understand, sister, that there's a distinct position of the tongue, but here's why I'm going to lose all my friends. Because not only do you need to, if you're going to watch your mouth, you not only need to understand the distinct position or place of the tongue, he also said you need to understand the damaging power of the tongue. It's right here in the text. Watch it. Look at the damaging power. Yes. The significance of power is right here in the text. Here it says. He says, the tongue is a fire. See that? Now, it's not actually the fire. What it is, it's the wood. It's the kindling. You know what kindling is? It's the stuff you use to start the fire. I worked for the Boy Scouts, and what we had to do, Dr. Worthington, was before we started the fire, we had these big logs, but you can't light fire to logs, they won't burn. So what you got to do, if you're from the country, you know, you have to get some kindling. So what you got to go out and just get some stuff, some little branches and little twigs and hay and grass, and what you do is you light that, and once you light that, that can start the fire. Come here, let me tell you something. You know what the tongue is? It's the kindling. You know what the tongue is? It's those branches that you put together. It's those things you do to start the fire. And many of y'all can testify that is the kindling that started the fire. Once the kindling together, all it took was a spark. You come home mad one day. Your wife say something to you. Can I just get in the house and just relax 1 minute?
Preach, Pastor.
Will you just let me alone? It's that, and then all of a sudden you going off. That's kindling.
Preach, Pastor.
He said, you got to understand that. And it's one spark that can start the whole fire. Husband has the same thing. Right? Can you just stop talking for just a little bit? Somebody say something and all of a The whole company's messed up. Watch this. He said, you need to watch your mouth because the damaging power of the tongue is that it's kindling. It's right. It'll take many of us a few seconds to go off on somebody. Some irks you, and you just start cussing folk out. He said the significance is that if you don't get a guard over your tongue, the tongue is a fire. It is kindling that's just waiting to get out. Let me give you, it carries with the idea of an animal that's caged and walking back and forth, waiting to be unleashed.
Wow.
It's like a tiger that's in a cage at the zoo, and you see it going back and forth, and as soon as you open that gate,
Yes, sir.
it shoots out.
Yes, sir.
He said that's how the tongue is.
Wow.
You know what the tongue is, Sister Jackson? The tongue is like that animal that's going back and forth, and as soon as you say something, like my grandma said, untoward, it gets out. As soon as somebody says something, there's a spark. So the next thing you know, the fire is starting. The kids say something, spark. You say something to the kids, spark. You go to school, craziness going on in the elementary, middle school, and high schools is kindling. James said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you got to understand that it is a fire. It's also a world of unrighteousness. You see that? Understand?
Wow.
What in the world does that mean? Can I suggest something to you? There's not too many sins in your life where the tongue is not involved.
My Lord.
Y'all need to write that down somewhere. There's not too many sins in your life where the tongue is not involved. Think about it. Adultery starts with the tongue. But you say, y'all should be quiet. You just start talking, right? Then you move into something. It starts with what you say, your speech. Most sins are somehow, some way connected with the tongue. Anger that's unleashed is because of what somebody said. Verbal abuse, mental abuse, all kind of abuse starts with the tongue. And it stains the whole body. He said what it does, it impacts everything in your life. Your tongue. It's a stain. And if you're not careful, it can mess up, look at the text, your entire course of life. And you may have experienced this. Your life, here's what James said, your life from cradle to grave can be impacted by your tongue. How many people here, even 50, 60 years old, are still impacted by what somebody said about you? I know the phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, y'all heard that before? That sounds good. But see, the reality is, broken bones can be healed.
All right.
Scars can go away. But words that were spoken as a child, words that are spoken as a teenager, words that are spoken when you are a kid, it still impacts you even today. Why? Because it can impact you from cradle to grave.
All right, sir.
How many folk are sick now because of what somebody said? How many people are in jail now because of what somebody said? How many people have fractured relationships based upon what you can't even have a healthy relationship now? got to go through therapy and counseling because of trauma-induced things by something that was said to you. He said it can impact the whole course of life. It's set among the members. And here's the reality, ladies and gentlemen, is that the tongue, it has damaging power.
All right.
Once you let it out your mouth, you can't take it back. Once it leaves your lips, you can never get it back. You're the man that went to a counselor, and when he went to the counselor, he sat down with the counselor and said that he had made a mistake with his tongue. He had spoke something so bad and he didn't know what to do with it. And this counselor told him, here's what I want you to do. He said, what I want you to do is I know you offended your neighbor, what I want you to do is I want you to go grab a trash bag and fill it with a whole bunch of feathers. And once you fill it with feathers, what I want you to do is take that big bag of feathers, and what I want you to do is I want you to pour it out all over your lawn and come back and see me next week. And that's what he did. So he grabbed a bag, filled it with as many feathers as he could. He dumped it out on his lawn. He waited a week, and when the appointment came to meet with his counselor, he sat down, and his counselor said, did you do what I asked you to do? He said, yeah. I grabbed a whole bunch of leaves, I put them in the bag, and what I did, I dumped that bag all over my yard. He said, here's what I want you to do now. Same thing he wants you to do to help you. He said, now I want you to go back and pick up every feather. He said, that's impossible. It's the same thing with your tongue. Once you put it out there, there's no way you can go back and pick it up. There's some husbands that said some things, and there's no way they can go back and pick it up. Some wives that said some things that it's hard to go back and pick it up, and now it's scarred some people, and you just like that man, I wish I could take it back.
Yeah.
He said, listen. He says that tongue is something else. Your speech can impact the entire course of your life. Here's what it is. And he says, not only do you understand the significance of it, you need to understand the source of that tongue. Y'all with me in the text? He says, it's the word of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. Wow.
My Lord.
Hell, this is one time that James, like his brother Jesus, used this term, hell, Gehenna. It was a place where they were, it's almost like a dump. It's Gehenna is where they would burn trash. It's almost like you go right down the street here at the city dump, where they dump the trash and where they burn the trash, and you have the stench. You can sometimes smell it at St. John, can't you? The stench that comes from the dump.
All right.
He says that is the imagery that he uses with regard to the tongue. He said it's set on fire by hell itself. And y'all know that there are some things, if you be honest, you said that you knew it was the enemy. It's like he's sitting on your shoulder. You give her a piece of your mind. It's like it's on your shoulder. So you gonna let him talk to you like that?
Like that,
You gonna let him put you on blast on Instagram?
All right.
You didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
You are a little old punk. You gonna let him do that to you? You gonna let him talk to you that way?
All right.
Like it's on the shoulder. He said it comes straight from hell. Well, help me, James. Because he says, if you're going to watch your mouth, not only do you need to understand the damaging power of the tongue, but also there is a duplicitous purpose and problem with the tongue. In other words, he said there's something wrong with this. Because this little small thing cannot be tamed. Look at verse 7. He said, for every kind of beast and bird and reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. He goes back to creation, this dominion mandate in Genesis. He tells mankind that I'm going to give you power, dominion over every beast of the field, over every fowl of the air, on every creeping thing. And we can see that, can't we? You ever go to the circus, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus? And you see the high wire acts and all that kind of stuff, but you know what I like? I love the man that can deal with the animal. And even though he had this big old elephant, he could control the elephant. He has dominion. And you can control the tigers and the lions and the bears. You can have bears riding bicycles. You can have tigers doing all kinds of stuff because you have dominion. But he said one thing that's crazy is that you can get a bear to do what you want to do. You can get a horse to do what you wanted to do. You can get an elephant to do, you can get a giraffe to do what you wanted to do. But oh, that little 3-inch member of the body, that thing that doesn't weigh but 2 ounces, you can't control it. Can't give it direction. And he said, and look what comes out of it. Y'all with me? I'm almost done. He said, look what comes out of the tongue. It's blessing and cursing. What I did a study. Since he's talking about the tongue, Brother Carter, I did a little research on the tongue. The physical tongue. Particularly with regard to taste buds. Did you know that there are 7,000 taste buds on the tongue? But if you look at the diagram of the tongue, there's certain parts of the tongue that detect different kinds of taste. Now watch this. 4 major areas of the tongue and taste buds. Watch it, Jimmy. One part of the tongue determines what's bitter. There's another part of the tongue, on the side of the tongue, on both sides determine what's sour. There's another part of the tongue that determines what's salty. And another part of the tongue that determines what's sweet. Now watch this. Most of the tongue has to do with something bitter, has to do with something sour, and has to do with something salty. A small part of the tongue has to do with something sweet. Y'all catch it on the way home. Watch it. Just like the physical tongue has to do with something bitter, sour, or salty, it's just like your tongue. You know what comes out of our tongues most of all? Not sweet stuff. That's a small percentage. You know what comes out of our tongue? Something that's bitter. I can tell you bitter the way you talk. Don't nobody want to be around you. Everything's wrong. Ain't nobody right but you. Bitterness. You can't even function good in relationship. Bitterness. And what comes out of your mouth, bitterness, mad, angry all the time. You sleep with your fist balled up. In case somebody want to start. was just sour. Y'all know sour people? You hate being around them? They don't light up a room, they dim the room. Sourness. And can I tell you this? Some folks may not be bitter. They may not be sour. Some folks just salty. Y'all know any salty folk? You can tell by how they talk. When you get a blessing, they salty. You get a promotion. Look at them talk. They salty. Well, I don't know why they gave a job to have. I don't qualify. Salty. You finally get in a relationship. Salty. I give it 6 months. Salty. Why you getting salty with folks? Finally get the car that you were saving up for. I don't know why she bought that. Salty folk in the church. And only, would you believe, there's a small part of the tongue, at the tip of the tongue, that determines sweetness. 3/4 of what comes out of our mouth is salty, sour, or bitter. James said it ought not to be so. He said it shouldn't be like that. How can you bless on one side of your mouth and curse on the other? Now what James said, when James says cursing, he ain't talking about cussing. But it does include cussing. Don't go out, don't believe it about way now. James ain't said nothing about cussing, so I can cuss. He said, when you talk, you can bless the Lord at one time, but want God to judge or curse another person on the other. These things ought not be so. Look what he says, Ken. Look what he says in the text. He said, we bless our Lord and Father. With one, we curse people who are made in the image and likeness of God. It goes back to Genesis. He created man and female, created him in the image and the likeness of God. And the problem is that when you curse somebody, you are cursing somebody that's made in the image and likeness of God. And that's contrary to the nature of God. James says, it should not be so. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? No. Can a fig tree, look at the text, can a fig tree bring forth, my brothers, olives? No. Can a grapevine produce figs? No. Can salt pond yield fresh water? No. If it doesn't happen in a natural sense, it should not happen in a spiritual sense. You know what James is saying? James is saying the fruit is determined by the root.
All right, sir.
Here's what he's saying. He's saying, whatever it produces, don't look at just the fruit, because the fruit is connected to the root. He said the reason, the sourness, the bitterness, and the saltiness comes from my tongue, he says, because that's in your heart. He says, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Y'all talking about that song, The Williams Brothers, it's in my heart. It's in my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason that stuff comes out of your mouth is not because somebody made you cuss. I can't believe you made me do this. You made me slap you. You made me. That didn't make you do that. Didn't nobody make you do nothing. You do it because it's in your heart.
All right.
He said that what you need is a heart transplant. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get your heart fixed. Whatever's in your heart, if you don't get it fixed, it'll come out of your mouth. So you need to watch your mouth because of its damaging power. There's a duplicitous problem. When we first moved to Arlington, we moved into a duplex. A duplex under one roof, two different families. It's a duplex. Under one roof, two different families.
All right.
That's what's going on with the tongue. Sometimes you can talk out of both sides. That's what the Native Americans said, the man speak with forked tongue. So if you like to lie a lot, you know what's in your heart? You're a liar. If you like to cuss a lot, that's in your heart. If you're salty, you got a salty heart. If you're sour all the time, sourness is in your heart. But you know what God wants to do? God wants to put that sweetness. Exchange the saltiness for sweetness. Exchange the bitterness for sweetness. Exchange the sourness for sweetness. Well, how do you do that? You know what you do? I said, you could change your mind.
Amen.
Watch this. Change your mind. Stop thinking somebody made you do it. Stop thinking it's okay. Stop thinking, well, you just how I was raised. Change your mind. Repent. You're going in one direction. Change your mind. And go in another direction. Because a change of mind leads to a change of heart, which leads to a change of action.
Amen.